Welcome back, Tetaritas, to Monster Mash by FredMSlonkier. We all realize we cannot lose our friends at one point, that we cannot stay forever. But sometimes, friends do not know when to leave well enough alone, as Rainbow Dash is about to discover in Pinkie Pie. Gallows humor. Enjoy! Rainbow Dash couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned on her cloud bed, eyes squeezed shut, body tensed, her mind frazzled. Below her, the base of her cloud home grumbled, the usually white cloud having gone gray and stormy, threatening rain but never quite producing it. She wasn't sure if it was reflecting her mood, or just rebelling without keeping it in line. Either way, it wasn't helping. Not that silence would help either. Silence just let the void to fill with her thoughts, which made it that much harder not to think, especially when she was trying to not think about one thing in particular. That was working about as well as she could expect. Her thoughts kept circling around like a tornado, pulling her back to that no-fly zone again and again. Each time the storm did a little more damage, making it harder and harder to pull away. She tried spending the day flying, pushing herself far longer than she ever had before. No fancy tricks or flashy stunts, just raw speed for as long as she could sustain it. It hadn't helped. Oh, her body was tired, aching, begging for sleep, but her brain was spinning in circles as fast as ever, and the result was some sort of spastic switch that added a new level of futility to her efforts to fight insomnia. When the knock came at the door, it was almost a relief. Almost. Rainbow Dash's eyes snapped open, then stared blearily at the darkness. "What time is it?" she mumbled, trying to focus on her clock, giving up after a moment. It was just too much effort. At any rate, she was sure it was somewhere off the buzz o'clock. Whoever was at her door would have to wait until morning. The door said. "Go away!" she protested, though too weakly for her voice to carry far, and rolled over, stuffing some cloud in her ears. She didn't know what was so important, and she didn't care. Right now, the only important thing in her universe was getting some sweet, plus sleep. Rainbow Dash half screamed, half moaned, as she realized her nocturnal visitor wasn't going to give up. Staggering from the relative comfort of her bed on shaking legs, she stumbled through the house, calling out, all right, I'm coming already!" It didn't seem to matter to the door, though, which just kept thumbing as somebody were trying to beat it down. Come on, everybody. Each stump made Dash's skull vibrate like it was being used for a drum, and by the time she finally reached the door, anger had given her semblance of alertness and energy, enough for her to swing the door open and violently yell, "What?" There was no one there. Staring uncomprehendingly at the empty space for a moment, Rainbow Dash could only think of one thing to say. "If this is your idea of a joke, it's not funny!" She didn't even know who she was talking to. No pony she knew could be so cruel. Whoever it was didn't answer, though, and so she slammed the door and stumbled back to bed, grumbling incoherently the whole way. By the time she reached the bed, her anger had drained away, leaving her feeling even more exhausted, craving to release his sleep with almost violent desperation. She half rolled, half fell onto the bed's fluffy goodness, only to punch straight through. She screamed, trying to soar out of her body and catch herself on her wings, but her body was slow and stiff, even with adrenaline shooting through it. The distance between her cloud home and the ground was the worst possible distance. High enough to hurt, but not high enough for her to get into any sort of controlled flight. She smacked the ground hard, a tangled ball of limbs and pain. For a moment, she saw stars. Fortunately, Rainbow Dash was tougher than she looked, and after a moment, she was able to sift herself, confirm that nothing was more than bruised, with only one question in her mind. "What the?" she began, looking up. There was a hole in the cloud where there hadn't been, the width and length of her bed, tunneling straight up through the cloud until it reached the bed's base. Only a thin layer of cloud had been left to disguise the trap, and that layer hadn't been enough to support Dash's weight. It was a pit trap in the sky, and even in her addled state, she could only think of one prankster ingenious enough to pull it off. "Pinkie Pie, I'll get you for this if—" "It's the last," Daisy remembered. Then she cried. Rarity found her some hours later, the Pegasus having cried her sleep to where she fell, managed to coax her into joining Rarity to a trip to the Small. It was a measure of Dass's mental state that he agreed without argument, and Rarity promised herself not to take advantage of that. No pestering about beauty treatment, no scented oils or mud mask, just a nice hot soak, a good scrub, and a thorough massage. Dass slept through most of it, which Rarity thought was for the best, all things considered. The elephant hit hard, but the weather pony had it the worst of all. With the spell session complete, Rarity had asked Rainbow Dash to join her for lunch, and again the Pegasus offered no protest. She still seemed asleep on her feet, though, and had to order for her, and she ate the salad with all the joy to wave of a gravestone. Rarity cringed inwardly. Bad example. At any rate, it didn't seem to be able to offer Rainbow Dash more than a decent meal in who knows how long. Her few attempts to start a conversation had fallen flat. She wasn't sure what she could say that would make a difference anyway. It came as a surprise then, when Rainbow Dash was the one to speak up. "Rarity?" "Yes, Rainbow Dash." Rarity looked up from her own, mostly empty plate of greens, adopting her best expression of earnest attention. "Do you believe in ghosts?" The question caught Rarity off guard. I don't know what you mean, dear," she replied, though she feared she could guess. "Last night, some pony knocked at my door, and when I went to look, there was no pony there. And when I went back to bed, they dug a hole straight through my cloud." "Oh, how awful!" Rarity replied, glad at the thought of somebody interrupting her beauty sleep like that. Rarity wasn't fizz. "And it's just, who would even do that? And how? There aren't many Pegasus ponies in Ponyville, and none of them are that fast. I mean, maybe I could do it, but not that neatly." "Maybe there was more than one," Rarity said, groping for the right word. Even villains seemed too mild. She couldn't imagine the level of cruelty involved playing a prank like that on Rainbow Dash at a time like this. "More than one pony who pulls a stunt like that?" Rainbow Dash replied, echoing her thoughts. "I can think of only one pony who would. Who could." Rarity frowned slightly. She'd been afraid that's where the conversation was headed. "Are you quite certain you didn't dream the whole thing? You've been under a lot of stress." "I'm not lying!" Rainbow Dash protested, thumping a hoof on the table and glaring at Rarity. "I never said you were," Rarity replied, with as much voice as she could muster. "But, darling, we all miss Pinkie Pie. Isn't it possible you just imagine the sort of pranks she pulled?" Rainbow Dash looked like she wanted to scream at the unicorn. But the moment passed and her head sunk. "I guess that does sound more likely than her. Pranking me from the grave, huh?" Her voice hit. A Rarity reached across the table to put her hoof on Dash's. "For what it's worth, if there's any pony who could pull it off, it'd be her," she said, willing Rainbow Dash to see the compassion in her eyes. After a moment, Dash looked up and thought it looked forced. She managed a slight smile. "Yeah, I guess you're right. Thanks, for everything." Rarity nodded slightly. "Think nothing of it, dear. We need to be there for each other, especially now." The rest of the meal passed in silence. Rarity couldn't sleep. It wasn't that Rainbow Dash's words had gotten to her. Of course not. She wasn't a little filly to jump at a suspicious nonsense. Much as she might miss Pinkie Pie's antics, she knew there was no coming back from beyond, especially after departing in such a spectacular manner. Honestly, what are the odds? Still, she hadn't yet time to properly grieve for her loss. Pinkie Pie had more or less taken over party planning for the entire town on her arrival, not including funerals, might as well as it seemed. Twilight Sparkle had volunteered to take on the responsibility for her friend's memorial, and Rarity was confident that Twilight would approach the task with the same professionalism she brought to anything she cared about. But she had yet to even set a date. Not that Rarity was being any more protective, she had to admit. She hoped a bit of sewing would take her mind off things, but she'd been completely unable to get into the zone, producing only scraps for her efforts. Her earlier attempt at designing had been even less fruitful, the blank pages seeming to taunt as she stared at them. She sighed, getting up from the sewing machine, Maybe some hot tea would look up. Then she paused, looking around intently. She wasn't sure, but she thought she heard something. For a long moment, she waited to see if she heard it again. There! It was a faint sound, but something was definitely moving downstairs. Something heavy. Could someone be trying to rob her? Heavens! Well, she wasn't going to stand idly by while someone rustled through her latest designs, ripping seams and getting dirt all over the dresses. Slowly, she crept towards the stairs, pausing as she reached them, considering her options. It'd be tricky to get down them quickly, especially with a sneak thief alert for any sound that he might be caught in the act. Plan B it was then. She darted down the stairs, hoping he'd be too frightened by her sudden appearance to put up a fight. He paused in the doorway leading into the shop, turning the boutique's lights on with a flick of her magic, and stared. It screamed. Fluttershy was worried. She was not, despite what some may think, a warrior. Timid, yes, and sometimes anxious, but she wasn't the sort of pony to work herself up into a huge lather if any little part of her daily routine went wrong. At least, not without encouragement. Still, it wasn't like Rarity to miss a spa day at all, let alone one they shared. Unicorn had been instrumental in keeping her from withdrawing entirely to her shell on coming to Ponyville. More so in some ways than Rainbow Dash. More to the point, the only thing she enjoyed more than making herself beautiful was helping others to be beautiful. As Fluttershy approached the boutique, she told herself that something must have come up, rushed or other. They kept Rarity too busy even to cancel her appointment. Fluttershy just needed to see it for herself. Then the uncomfortable feeling in her stomach would settle down. She reached the door of the boutique, gave it a gentle push, and was surprised when nothing happened. Maybe Rarity didn't want to be disturbed. She hesitated, then knocked at the door. Rarity? She wondered timidly. Nothing continued to happen. Fluttershy dithered. Should she try knocking again? But what if Rarity was too busy? She didn't want to be a bother. What if something was wrong, though? What if something had happened to Rarity? She couldn't barge in. That would be incredibly rude. Where was Sweetie Belle anyway? She'd be at school. Would she know what was going on? She might have slept over with some of her friends to take her class out. It would be awkward even if she didn't know. Rarity screamed. Fluttershy jumped, turned toward the door, and ran it before she knew what she was doing. The lock gave way, leaving her to stare wide-eyed at her friend, trembling at the steps of the far side of the boutique, surrounded by mannequins? Puzzled, Fluttershy made her way over to Rarity, who seemed to be coming to her senses. I'm sorry about breaking your door, Fluttershy stammered, not sure what to say. Rarity waved out the apology, pausing to her feet. It's quite all right, dear. I'm sorry for startling you so. She still looked a touch pale. What happened here? Fluttershy wondered, looking for the mannequins to Rarity. Oh, it was just a Redfin! Rarity replied. I was up late working, and I heard the noise from downstairs. And when I came to see what was happening, I saw this! She gestured at the mannequins. It was too much to bear, and then to wake only to find it still here. My heart's still pounding! It must have been very scary, Fluttershy soothed. A half-dozen mannequins staring at her disapprovingly when she turned in the light. It was no wonder Rarity had fainted. So ghastly! Rarity agreed, looking at the mannequins with distaste. They couldn't possibly chosen worse hats to go with those dresses! She reached out with her magic and began to swap hats, unable to bear it any longer. Fluttershy blinked. You mean it wasn't the mannequins that scared you? Oh, well, yes, that was startling too, I suppose, Rarity replied. But to think! Someone broke into my shop just to do this! Some pony has a sick sense of humor! Rarity wasn't quite sure she understood. So she did focus on what she did understand. Who do you think did this? I haven't a clue, Rarity admitted. Last time I got such a fright was when Pinkie Pie. An awkward silence fell over the room. Would you like me to help you clean up? Fluttershy offered. No, it's quite all right, Rarity replied. There, that should hold them until we get back from the spa. Fluttershy wasn't sure why disarrangement of hats and dresses was such an improvement, but she knew better than to say no. Just give me a moment to fess it up, all right, darling? Goodness me, I may need 2 senses today. Rarity headed back up the stairs, Looking Fireside to point her the mannequins in wonder. Was this some pony's way of trying to fill the gaps Pinkie Pie had left behind? Or was it something else? Twilight Sparkle couldn't sleep. It had been nearly a week since Pinkie Pie had died, and she still couldn't bring herself to believe it. They had been through so much together, survived things that could have killed them a dozen times over, and yet they were still young enough to believe themselves invincible. Pinkie Pie especially. If she walked through Twilight's door right now, Twilight wouldn't have questioned for a second that the pony somehow managed to survive. That! Pinkie Pie, she sighed softly. You are so random. It was something she heard Rainbow Dash say more than once, and it seemed to the pink pony even in death. Who else could find a way to be killed that, as far as she had been able to research, never happened to any pony in the history of Equestria before? She looked at the stairs, feeling more souls in the cool light. Princess Luna hadn't known Pinkie Pie well, and the times they met had been problematic. But all the same, she and Celestia both mourned Pinkie Pie's loss. Celestia had fairly nearly declared a day of national mourning, held back by the obvious objection. Pinkie Pie would never want that. They hadn't actually honored her death yet. A funeral seemed too somber. A wake seemed to fit better. But the wound was still too raw, and Twilight had been unable to read the books he found on party planning without bursting into tears. She brought it with her into the balcony, but she hadn't yet brought herself to open it. She heard a distant thump. One ear perked. Was that someone knocking at the front door? It seemed unlikely, as he hadn't noticed any pony approaching the library. But she supposed she could take a look. She wasn't in any real rush, though. If someone needed a book at this hour of the night, they could wait a minute or two. More thumps followed. Twilight frowned. That hadn't sounded like knocking. The quality of the sound was wrong, and too muffled, as if someone knocked on the door gently. She wouldn't have been able to hear it. She walked over to the edge of the balcony, peered into the darkness below, but saw nothing. Hello? Any pony down there? She called anyway. Another thump. This time a loud one. She recognized the sound. She heard it many times before. Books hitting the carpet. From the third, no, fourth shelf. Spike! Are you awake? She called, heading back into the darkened library. She couldn't think why he'd be reading at this hour, and all the books at his reading level were closer to the floor for obvious reasons. But she didn't know what else might explain the sound. More and louder thumps. Twilight throws, some nameless terror chilling her veins at the strange sounds, but fear turned to anger at the sight of an intruder damaging her books, or worse, threatening to steal them. As he raced down the stairs. Hold it right there! She commanded, lighting the lanterns with a thought. Her horn blazing with gathered energy as he faced down an empty room. No, that comes later, next year. Huh? She said, looking around suspiciously for any shadows a pony could hide in, only to scream and jump as a small group of books slid off the shelf in front of her and landed on the floor. She quickly recovered, passed the light of her horn over the shelves, but sensed nothing. No spell residue. No pony hide behind the books. Cautiously, she made her way over to the windows, finding them unbroken. Then the door, finding it still locked. Puzzled, she turned to look at the shelves themselves, and spotted something she hadn't noticed before. Having been looking at the shelves at an oblique angle, the spaces where the books were had formed a smiling face. Twilight called her friends together the first thing in the morning. I told you something was going on! Rainbow Dash declared triumphantly to Rarity. The five of them, plus Spike, seated around Twilight's kitchen table. And not good as a round table that produces a map that tells you when some pony's in trouble and it's time to go save the day as a bunch of awesome heroes, but it'll do. There's no need to jump to conclusions yet, Rarity protested. Whoever did this may simply have an abysmal taste. There's no call for you to be telling ghost stories. I never said anything about ghosts, Rainbow Dash replied smugly. But come on! Pranking me, you, Twilight, 3 nights in a row, and none of us can figure out how? There's only one pony I know who could have pulled that off. There's only one way to know for sure, Twilight replied, and that's to cast him in the act. How are we supposed to do that? Rarity blinked. Applejack, Rainbow Dash said. All eyes turned to the confused-looking farm pony. She's the only one of us that hasn't been pranked yet. Now hang on just a second, Applejack replied. Fluttershy hadn't been pranked either. But Pinkie Pie would never prank Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash said. And what if our intruder isn't some... Rarity began, searching for the right word. Piggy poltergeist? Twilight suggested. Rarity nodded. You didn't know that, she finished. Applejack considered the situation. Well, I suppose if we were all in the same place, they had to come to us if they were planning any food business. And that farmhouse is a mile bigger than your country cottage. No offense, Sugar Cube. Fluttershy Dash nodded. Right, it's settled, Rainbow Dash said, thumping her off on the table. We're going to cast ourselves a prankster pig hoofed. But what if it is Pinkie Pie's ghost? Fluttershy stammered. What do we do then? Spike, Twilight said. Do we still have that copy of Portal's Paranormal Complication? I think so, Twilight. Spike looked thoughtful. I'll go check. Who's the what now? Applejack wondered. It's a collection of lore identifying and dealing with the supernatural, Twilight answered. I don't know how authentic it is, but the spells in it do something. I just can't tell what without having an actual subject. Twilight didn't look comfortable with the situation, and Applejack couldn't blame her. And if it's just some idiot trying to be clever, we ought to be able to bug some sense into him, Applejack replied. Twilight nodded, looking somberly at the assembled faces. All right, let's find out what's going on here, one way or another. Fluttershy couldn't sleep. They agreed to take turns, staying up and listening for an intruder. And right now, it was technically Applejack's turn. But Fluttershy had felt tired when her turn was over, and Applejack looked so peaceful when she was asleep. So, Fluttershy decided not to wake her. She was beginning to wonder if that had been a good idea, though. Not that she was in danger of nodding off and missing an intruder. Quite the opposite, really. She was too nervous to sleep without some pony to watch over her. What if Rainbow Dash was wrong and it wasn't Pinkie Pie, just some pony with a really bad sense of humor? What if she did catch the pony in the act? What might they do in a panic to keep their identity secret? What if Pinkie Pie's ghost? From what few ghost stories she knew, ponies didn't just decide to become ghosts, especially nice ponies like Pinkie Pie. It looked something awful to make a ghost, like dying in a truly terrible way, like what happened to Pinkie Pie. She hadn't heard any stories about happy ghosts either. Some of them were sad, most of them were angry. Most of them were very angry. Pinkie Pie blamed them for somehow not saving her? Was this her way of letting them know they were on her list? Was he just getting warned up for something truly dreadful? Was he going to haunt their nightmares and kill them in ridiculous ways even though her death was purely her fault? No, I don't like Nightmare on Star Street. Why do you say that? It occurred to Fluttershy that she might actually be a bit of a warrior. She couldn't help it, though. She didn't even know what kind of prank Pinkie Pie might think to pull. She'd never been good at pranks, and the last time she had any played on her was back in Cloudsdale. Sticking some pony's hoof in a bowl of warm water, or sticking it out to some pony's plank, didn't seem like Pinkie's style, though, even if she wasn't a ghost. Anyway, with all 5 of them in the farmhouse, plus the rest of the Apple Clan, it seemed like whoever was doing this was taking an awfully big risk. It'd be much safer to do something outside, where no pony would notice until morning, like... Fluttershy froze, then carefully crept toward the window and peered out. One of Applejack's trees was burning with a pale blue flame. The fire wasn't harming the trees. That wasn't the point. In fact, it wasn't technically the tree that was on fire, only the apples that were burning. The flames causing the skins of the fruit to turn orange and form black stripes. In a matter of moments, the tree was festooned not with apples, but with cheery jack-o'-lanterns. Apple-lanterns had a nice ring to it, she thought. Once one tree was done, the flames jumped to the next tree. It was hard work, but she was confident she had done enough of them by morning to really leave an impression. Then Twilight Sparkle was there. That was surprising. What was more surprising was what Twilight did next. She had a book with her. That wasn't the surprising part. She started reading for it, her horn glowing brighter as she did. That wasn't the surprising part either. The surprising part was that the words hurt. They weren't loud, but they went into her head and did funny things. Things she didn't like. She tried to run away, but she couldn't. She couldn't even do her special running away trick. It was like the words were a rope, and Twilight's harness was a stake. All she could do was wriggle around at the end of the rope. Which would have been more fun if Twilight would just stop saying those hurtful things. She could see her other friends coming out of the farmhouse now, heading her way. Maybe they could tell Twilight to stop. She tried herself, but Twilight wasn't listening for some reason, just saying more of those words. Twilight knelt, touching her horn to the ground, and said a final syllable. The rope snapped, and Pinkie staggered back, only to hit a wall that hadn't been there before. She looked around dazedly, seeing the wall all around her, shining from a circle on the ground and reaching up, way too high to jump. On the other side of the wall, her friends stared at her. Their expressions a mixture of shock, amazement, and fear. What was with them all anyway? They looked like they'd just seen a ghost. I'll saying it, Applejack said, but I don't believe it. She spoke for all of them in a sense. Even Rainbow Dash, who'd most hoped they'd find Pinkie Pie found a way to cheat death, wasn't sure how to react to the sight. The burning fruit had been eerie enough, but when Twilight began to cast her spell, a shape appeared in the air, a shape that had become a spectral Pinkie, hovering in the air as if it were no big deal, beating on the invisible walls that made her visible to begin with. She looked afraid, like she didn't even recognize them, and wailed unpleasantly. Should we try giggling at her? Fluttershy suggested. None of them felt quite up to trying. So, what do we do? Verity said a moment later. There was no response. Twilight? Applejack festered. Twilight jerked. Huh? Oh, right. Sorry. I didn't think it would actually work. I mean, wow. Just, wow. Twilight, Applejack replied. What do we do? Twilight looked back to the book. Flipped at her urgently. There's a section about laying spirits to rest. It should only take a few minutes. What? Rainbow protested. We just found out she's still here, and you want to kill her? She's already dead, Twilight shouted, turning Dash back. I can't bring her back to life. Not even the princesses can do that. For the Sun Fury, Dash realized that Twilight had asked. She swallowed the thought of Celestia denying her price to anything. I'm sorry, Twilight continued, voice thick. Stay away from the circle. She might try to break out. She looked at the book again, cleared her throat and began to read. More of those long, sonorous words that made Dash's ears itch. Supposedly any pony, not just a unicorn, could use the spells in that book and have them work. Twilight had simply been the obvious choice for doing them right. Pinkie's ghost screamed again, and Fluttershy answered that scream. Rainbow Dash looked on in shock. Pinkie's form was changing, flashes of bone and muscle appearing, her whole body twisting in agony. With each passing second, she looked more and more like she had when they saw her, when they died, when Dash failed her. I can't! Dash realized, the words almost inaudible. Then, before she even knew what she was doing, she touched forward, screaming, I can't! Applejack tried to stop her, but for once, the Earth Pony's grasp on her tail was just a hair too slow, and Dash was able to surge forward and cross the circle. The barrier that trapped Pinkie didn't feel like anything to her. Her half-formed plan to tackle the ghost out of the circle didn't work either. She only felt a bone-chilling cold as she passed through Pinkie. One of her hose scraped the ground where the circle glowed, and that was enough. The barrier popped like a soap bubble. Even as Rainbow Dash collapsed, suddenly so very tired, Twilight fell backward for the feedback of the spell. Pinkie Pie fled. She went back to Ponyville, her mind a jumble. Twilight had hurt her. Twilight Sparkle, her best friend in the history of friends, had hurt her. And the rest had watched. Even Rainbow Dash, her extra super best friend, had watched as she screamed and begged and cried, until at last she couldn't watch anymore and let her go. That's what made her Pinkie's extra super best friend. But still, she watched. They all watched as Twilight hurt her. She didn't even know why. First they'd been ignoring her. Then they started crying when they talked about her. And now it was like they didn't even want her around anymore. She couldn't understand what she'd done wrong. She stumbled home, or thought she'd been. She'd been feeling bad for a while. Sick, maybe. Things looked weird. Sometimes she forgot she got somewhere. She couldn't even remember the last time she eaten. Well, she tried to remember. She tried to think about anything too hard. Her brains all got jumbly-wumbly. Maybe she was sick. Maybe Twilight was just trying to make her feel better. Maybe she hadn't understood because she was sick. Maybe she was really nasty medicine. That made more sense than Twilight hurting her on purpose. Yes, she does stay here, and Twilight would find her. They have a good laugh about how sick she was, that she didn't even know Twilight was trying to. Pinkie paused. She wasn't in her room. She was in a little room in Nurse Radar's house. A room that didn't get a lot of use. In fact, last time she had been there, it had been when they found old Withers on his farm. The day he had been super cold out and he'd... Pinkie Pie slowly looked down into the coffin under the table in front of her. She saw a familiar pink face, smiling and peaceful, looking like it was just taking a nap. As long as he didn't look too closely at the rest of her, she's already dead. No. I can't bring her back to life. No. Not even the princesses could do that. It wasn't fair. I'm sorry. It's not fair! Pinkie howled, and the world went red. Rainbow Dash stood in midair, the rest of the group following suit, and stared in shock at the sight before her. Ponyville was burning. Oh, mercy, Applejack said. Removing her hat, she looked on. The flames didn't seem to be harming the buildings, but they were panicking ponies nonetheless, sending them screaming through the streets. The flames were the least of their worries. The town seemed to be full of angry ghosts and ponies and parts of ponies brought back from who knows where, and each and every one seemed bent on tormenting the living. They popped out of the ground or out of the walls, lashing out at the ponies, sending them running first down one street, then another, in a desperate attempt to escape. No pony had been hurt, at least they could see, but if this went on, it couldn't end well. At the center of it all, a pillar of light, a deep, angry red, swirled around the building they had all last been inside, under very unhappy circumstances. "We've got to stop her!" Rainbow Dash yelled. "We can't let her do this!" "I was trying to stop her!" Twilight yelled back, eyes seeming to glow red in the unearthly light. "You wouldn't let me!" "I'm sorry!" Rainbow Dash shouted back. I didn't know she'd do this!" "That doesn't matter now," Applejack said, stepping between the two and giving each a stern look. "What matters is, how do we shut this down?" Twilight looked at her mouth for a moment, brought the book up again, and looked through it. "I can protect us from the ghosts, but I can't do it and stop Pinkie," she said. "Someone else will have to do that." Rarity nodded and opened her mouth to volunteer. "I'll do it." "What?" Rarity said, keeping at Rainbow Dash. "You can't possibly—" "My fault," Dash replied. "My responsibility. All I had to do is say the words, right?" Twilight nodded, skimming the book to be sure she had her own incantation right. She flipped it to the right page and pressed it on Rainbow Dash. "It'll be easier if it's just the two of us," she said. "Applejack, you keep Fluttershy and Rarity safe." Applejack nodded solemnly. "You've got my word, Twilight. You come back safe, too." Twilight nodded once, then, beginning to chant, led Rainbow Dash into the storm. It was an eerie light, like being in the eye of a tornado. All around them, chaos reigned. Fires blazed, ghosts screamed, ponies panicked. Every so often, a ghost would try to leap at them, only to turn away at the last second. There was no shimmering bubble of force, nothing obviously magically holding them back. This Twilight's calmed, measured words. Who'd come up with these spells? Egon Spangler? How did they wind up in a book Twilight had used for costume ideas, of all things? Peter Venkman? Rainbow Dash wasn't even sure she wanted to know. Ray Spence? They researched Red Heart's office. The nurse was lying on the street in front of it, looking like she had been frightened to death. Dash felt a lump in her throat, one that lingered even as she knelt into the pony, felt her steady pulse. Pinkie Pie was killing ponies. Might have already killed ponies. Rainbow Dash's fault. She looked at the books he was cradling in her forelegs as he hovered beside Twilight. All she had to do was read the passages where Pinkie Pie could hear them. One for binding a ghost to prevent it from escaping. One to banish the bound ghost from the land of the living. Simple. A minute tops. A minute to kill her friend. The door opened for them. The flames on the walls, the light shining all around them, peeled away from Twilight's voice. Rainbow Dash knew the way. It hadn't been that long after all. A right here, a left there. The most isolated part of the building, used the least. One wanted to disturb the patients. There weren't any patients here now, just ghosts. How many had died here? How many had died peacefully in their sleep, killed in the frontier days? From illness, accident, or even violence. Ponyville was supposed to be a small town. Just how many dead ponies could it have to its name? They entered the room. Possibly some fancy medical name. Rainbow Dash didn't care. They put Pinkie on a table, then they put her in a box. Then they were going to put her in the ground, as Twilight thought of the right words to say. She found the words now, but Rainbow Dash would have to say them. Pinkie was there, though Dash barely recognized her. She was blazing with fury. The Pinkie of her mane no longer so tearful when it was the only light to see by. Crimson rage burning. She saw them immediately and tried to attack them. Twilight was forced back a step somehow, without even touching her. The words. Rainbow Dash looked down at the book and began to read. They were harder to pronounce than she expected, but Twilight made little pencil notes, just in case. Thank you, Twilight. Pinkie's ghost recognized the danger, tried to flee. Too late already. She was caught by the first syllable. She tried to attack them, but Twilight held her back with increasing effort. Rainbow Dash read. She couldn't rush it. She didn't know what would happen if she said one of the words wrong. There was a big mark on the page. What did the mark mean? Oh, she was done with the first part. She looked up. And it worked. Pinkie was caught in an invisible tube again. The light in the room faded, just enough to read by. The other ghosts were still restless, still beating at Twilight's defenses. But would they go away once Pinkie Pie was vanished, right? Rainbow Dash looked at the book, looked up at Pinkie. There was a long silence. I can't! Rainbow Dash said again. She couldn't kill Pinkie Pie. But she couldn't let Pinkie Pie kill any pony else either. She stepped toward the tube, despite Twilight's desperate glare. Unable to stop standing for a second. Her voice was the only thing keeping the ghosts from jumping them both. Twilight was forced to follow Rainbow Dash closer. Pinkie! Rainbow Dash yelled. Pinkie! She couldn't tell if the ghost understood her or not. Form became some of a blur of red. Only faintly visible shapes inside it. Pinkie! You have to calm down! Dash yelled. There are ghosts running around, and everybody's scared. Some ponies have been hurt already, and... She searched for something. Anything she could say that would get through to the ghosts. Something Pinkie would understand. Pinkie! This isn't funny anymore! The ghosts, all the ghosts, hesitated. Pinkie's ghost was still for a long moment. Then deflated like a balloon inside its tube, turning to something Dash had only seen once before. Straight-haired, abandoned, lonely Pinkie-Mina, eyes wide and wet with tears, standing on her hind legs, pressing her hooves against the invisible barrier. I'm sorry, Pinkie said. I didn't know what was happening, and nobody would pay attention to me, and I did my best jokes, and nobody laughed, and then Twilight hurt me, and I ran away, and I only wound up here, and... It's not fair, Rainbow Dash! It's not fair. I know it's not fair, Pinkie, Rainbow Dash said, closing her eyes, squeezing her own tears out. It's not fair at all. If I could just bring you back somehow. There was a moment of silence, save for Twilight's continued chanting. Her voice was starting to ragged. Twilight! Rainbow Dash said, turning to the unicorn. We don't have to banish her, right? I mean, we can get rid of the other ghosts, but not have to send her away, right? Pinkie Pie looked uncertain. But then I'll still be a ghostie. Forever! It's that, or send you off to wherever you're supposed to go, Dash said, turning back to Pinkie. If that's what you want, I'll do it. But I don't think these ghosts are going to wait much longer. The ghosts Pinkie's rage had brought up were beginning to look restless again, pressing at the force Twilight's words exerted. Pinkie Pie hesitated, looking around as if trying to read another option off the walls or something. One of the ghosts attacked Rainbow Dash, forcing her to edge closer to Twilight. That seemed to decide the issue. I don't want to leave! Pinkie cried. I want to stay with you, Dashie! You, Twilight, and all my friends! I don't care if you can't see or hear me. I don't care if that means I never have to throw a party again! She glanced at Rainbow Dash with sky blue eyes, looking for that one moment as real and solid as Dash had ever seen her. Please. Rainbow Dash turned again. Twilight! She pleaded. The unicorn didn't answer, but the book in Dash's arms began to glow. It quickly turned to a new page. Dash scanned the page hurriedly, not understanding at first what Twilight was trying to tell her. Then smiled, realizing she'd been offering that third option. Thanks, Twilight, she said, with voice barely over the lamentations of the dead. They turned her eyes to the ghost of her best friend. Hang on, Pinkie, she shouted. I'm coming! She then stepped into the column with Pinkie Pie. Elzac, Rarity, and Fluttershy watched from the outskirts of Ponyville as their friends disappeared to the streets. They'd been at Nurse Redheart's for at least a few minutes now, Applejack reckoned, at least if he'd seen correctly. There'd been sort of a shadow against the flame, the sign of whatever spell Twilight had used to get them inside. We should be doing something! Rarity protested, looking furtively at the town. Surely, between the three of us, we could evacuate at least some of the ponies from Ponyville, right? I promise Twilight I'll keep you two safe, and I intend to keep that promise, Applejack said, beginning to unwind her lasso. Rarity noticed her eyes widen. And how do you suppose to do that? I don't suppose you two get too much trouble if I tie you to one of these trees, will you? At least, not enough for me to regret leaving you behind. Rarity understood immediately. You're very brave, Applejack, she said, but I can't ask you to go alone. I ain't asking anything either, Applejack replied. If I have to high-tie you to keep you out of trouble, I will. I'm suggesting maybe you'll be more comfortable if... Then the screaming stopped. The three turned to Ponyville, just in time to see the red light recede like the tide, pulling fires and ghosts with it, collecting into a swirling tornado over Nurse Redheart's office. And if I don't do this now, I will never forgive myself, but... Ahem. Goes on, the destroyer has chosen. Pinkie Pie? What did you pick, Pinkie Pie? I chose something I thought would never hurt us. Something that always brings me such happiness. It's a safe puff marshmallow pony. Thank you. There it hung for a long moment before sucking itself down into the building, vanishing utterly, leaving being a strange silence. Fluttershy was the first to break herself from the spell and hurry forward, but the other two were close behind. In the streets, they found ponies frightened, hurt, some unconscious, but all of them alive. They didn't linger long, just long enough to be sure no pony needed urgent aid, pressing on the clinic. Nurse Redheart was there, picking herself gingerly, but no other ponies. It wasn't until the three reached the morgue they found what they were looking for. Twilight and Rainbow Dash, both lying on the floor next to Pinkie Pie's casket. Rainbow Dash was unconscious, but Twilight was awake. Did you? Rarity began, once again unsure how to finish the sentence. Twilight shook her head slightly. Then what happened to, well, everything? Twilight tried to speak, only croaked. Thankfully her magic was strong, so she put the book from under Rainbow Dash, holding it to Rarity, the page still open. Rarity read silently, and her eyes widened. Oh my! Rainbow Dash was sleeping like a baby. The incident hadn't been Ponyville's first brush of a disaster. It probably won't be the last. No pony was seriously hurt, though a few had hurt themselves in a panic and were sporting bandages or slings. There had been some property damage as well. Again, panicked ponies, plus pesky poltergeists. But nothing that couldn't be cleared up in a day or two. They had to wake 3 nights later. Pinkie had been the guest of honor, of course, even though she could only attend in spirit. Dash had been able to believe Twilight could see that with a straight face. Every pony who attended was encouraged to tell stories of how Pinkie changed their lives for the better. And many ponies did. There were tears, but mostly laughter. This how she would have wanted it. Rainbow Dash still hurt, even months later. They all did. Twilight Sparkle's last second stroke of brilliance had been, well, brilliant. But it hadn't brought Pinkie to life. Every day they had to remind themselves that Pinkie Pie wasn't there to bring a smile to their faces. That meant they had to pick up the slack. Fluttershy had even, rather timidly, played a joke on the cutie mark crusaders, tugging them out into Whitetail Wood on a night to look for an injured snipe. Even Daz had to admit that was a stroke of genius. No pony saw it coming from her. Dassy. Daz stirred on her cloud, mumbling something incoherent. He'd been busting in clouds most of the day. Does he really need to be well rested for tonight? A rainbow dash! Some ponies seem to have other ideas, though. Gradually, Dash blinked awake, looking over at the pink pony next to her, one only she could see. You know you don't actually need wings, right? She grumbled at Pinkie Pie. Come on, Rainbow Dash! Pinkie enthused, bouncing up and down in thin air, flapping with pink wings. The sun's about to set, and you know what that means! Dad stood and stretched. Yeah, I know. It wasn't easy for the dead to enter the realm of the living, especially a good-hearted ghost like Pinkie. Even appearing for Rainbow Dash to see wasn't something she could do anytime she wanted. Sometimes made it easier, though, like tonight. Just remember, I'm not as flexible as you, okay? You just about broke something last time. Just about only counts your horseshoes! Pinkie protested, only to receive a glare. Sighing, she performed a racial, cross my heart, held the fly, stick a cupcake in my eye. Rainbow Dash was positive that last bit hadn't looked so disturbing before. Almost positive. Remember the rules, Rainbow Dash said, looking out her bleached body over. You only get a third of the candy. Pinkie Pie's usual intake could probably send Dash to join her. Check! No doing anything really stupid with my body and leaving me to deal with it. Check everything, and no singing. Aww, but your voice is even better than mine. No! Fine, check. Okay then, Dash said, seeing the sun dipping over the horizon, the moon rising to take its place. Let's do this! Yippee! Pinkie declared, then rushed at Rainbow Dash. There was a moment of confusion. Then Rainbow Dash returned to her usual colors. Hovering nearby as Pinkie Pie fuzzed her borrowed mane, trying to get proven properly. Why didn't you have me dye myself pink anyway? Rainbow Dash wondered. It was much like her Nightmare Night costume. A white body with a start but blonde mane. It's a surprise. Ding! Do 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 do. Wall.